Hello. The location for my Citiest Text project is CityWay in the south downtown portion of Indianapolis. Some history behind this area was that back in the early 1900s, it was initially an area for swimming. It was a big public saltwater swimming pool. And this was started by the city's coroner and playground manager, which playground in this sense is um, social interaction locations where you can do more playful activity like swimming, football, basketball, things of that nature, fell under this man named Harry Tutwiler. According to the Indy Star author um, reporter Don Mitchell published in June 2019 about the history of the recreational area. So this area, again, it was Indianapolis was segregated at that point in time, and this area was just for white men, and on some days allowed women and kids, but mainly for um, the leisure time for men, white men specifically. So later on, there were certain days where kids and women can come, but this was specifically for the men and sporting events. So people can gather there for sporting events. For they had a time for dating, which I mentioned in the history of the portion in the project. But also, after that kind of died out somewhere around the later of the 1900s, around the 20s or 30s, it kind of died out and it was torn down. So it stood just like an open area for the downtown portion. So then later on, Gainbridge Fieldhouse came about, and the Buckingham Company came and wanted to redevelop the area and but also preserve the history of it. So what happened is that it started with the hotel, the Alexander, and then moved forward to add apartments, a dog park, the Jim Irsay YMCA is there, and then they added restaurants. And the part two was adding more restaurants and a CVS. So that's the area that I conducted my observation, my listening, and my interviews. And the community ties when doing the interviews, the people who lived and worked in that area mainly were new to the city or new to the state, or were in that area because it was close to their jobs and they get a discount. So Eli Lilly is um, right outside of that area, but they do provide their employees with discounts to take part in their restaurants, their hotel, the hotel that's in the area, and also the YMCA, the Jim Irsay YMCA. And what I learned is that people come there and they do get the downtown city feel without the downtown city bustling, because it's not in the heart of downtown, is right on the outskirts. So the most time that they get a lot of traffic is when there's a basketball game or something happening at Gamebridge, because the Cityway is positioned right behind Gamebridge. So they get that traffic from the parking lot. But usually it's just people doing their day to day living or going to the restaurants or naturally going to the gym. One thing that I wanted to tie back into the reading was in chapter 9. We talked about chapter 9, popular culture and intercultural. Um, we talked about the brunch places. Well, the popularity with brunch places. So there are 3 restaurants that serve brunch and have a very high traffic on their brunch. It's Tupelo Honey, Yolk, and Agave and Gry. Agape and Gry. Rye, excuse me. And in the 1895, there was a guy named Guy Beringer who coined in Hunter's Weekly, who coined that Brunch is cheerful, social, and exciting. And instead of using a post church early dinner, that was typical in England. It should be a hybrid of breakfast and lunch served around noon. So the popularity in brunch became popular in the 1930s in the U.S. and started with individuals stopping in for late breakfasts when they were coming out of town, and a lot of those people were celebrities. So celebrities create that pop culture and also that high culture where they stopped for if they made brunch luxurious and glamorous. So they associated that with high culture because celebrities set the tone on those things. And it wasn't just during the day, but it was something very private because during the early to 1920s is when prohibition was alive and well. And even in those times, you were considered wealthy if you were able to get alcohol during those times with your brunch. And another thing, so that contributes to the three restaurants that boast on their brunch options, and that takes up most of the day, where they do have brunch specials throughout up until about 4, and then they turn to dinner. Another thing that tied people together from my conversation was the gym and the CVS. So yes, let's say that they aren't going to eat, but the common purpose to coming together would be meeting at the gym or getting something from the pharmacy to take care of yourself, especially with the different flus and viruses going around. So that was like a one tie that came together for a unity. One thing I did not see in the area were anything religious. So I can see that being a deterrent at times if they were looking for some place that was close to a church. The closest church was about, I want to say, 2 miles or so down, but it was more so a cathedral, I believe. But anyone I talked to in that area did not mention the church. They specifically talked about the living and the working areas that they were able to access by foot because it's a very high traffic foot location. So the people over there didn't really have cars because they didn't really need it unless they went to a grocery store, which is not in the area.